Hi guys, and welcome back to part 2 of LO1 participation for your contemporary issues in sport revision. In the last video we discussed user groups and different barriers to participation. So we're going to start this video by looking at some solutions, and we categorise solutions into provision, promotion and access. In terms of provision, it's the action of providing or supplying something for use. So it's providing or supplying sessions, and it's the planning behind that. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the programming of sessions by use of different user groups. So are sessions actually available for different user groups to go to? Is there a session that's aimed at disability groups, for example, or is there a session that's based at elderly groups or children's groups? Do they actually exist? The second part is providing appropriate activity options for the demands of different user groups. So the demands of an elderly group or a disabled group might be completely different to that of a sort of a middle-aged working group. So is there appropriate activity options? For example, if you're going to set up a football session aimed at 65 plus, is it worth doing 11-a-side games that are sort of normal rules, or is it worth providing appropriate activity which might look like walking football, for example? The last thing is planning of times that suit different user groups. So there's no point in having a kids fun session in the middle of the day on a weekday when children are going to be at school. You're more likely to have that on a Saturday or a Sunday. And for elderly people who are retired, you're more likely to have a session for them in the middle of the day where they can access that and it won't be really busy with kids or families, for example. The second solution to barriers comes under promotion. So this idea of targeted promotion. So we're actually targeting who we want to come, and then we're using promotion to sort of allow them to see that and to get some exposure. For example, elderly people aren't going to have Instagram, so it's unlikely that any of them would get sort of awareness of what was going on from Instagram. So it's more likely if you put it on the bus or in the local paper, they're more likely to see it and therefore know what's happening. The next thing in terms of promotion is promoting role models to encourage participation among different user groups. So having a real range of role models, female role models, Paralympic role models, to try and encourage people into sport, encourage people into participation of regular activity. And then finally, initiatives are aimed at promoting participation and inclusion. So we have things like This Girl Can, for example, which is aimed at promoting participation within females and saying to them, look, you can take part in sport. It's not unattractive to be out of breath and sweaty. It's healthy, and that encourages that sort of positive image for females. And there's a few different initiatives that we're going to go on later on in the unit that talk about this in a bit more detail. The final solution in terms of barriers is access. So we're thinking about access to facilities. Can you actually get there? If you're an elderly person who's retired and you don't drive, is there transport potentially? Is there something in the local area? Can you actually get in when you get there? So is there a ramp or is there assistance in terms of a lift if it's on multiple floors? So can you actually get in the facilities? The second thing is access to equipment. So people from a low socioeconomic group might not have the money to buy equipment. So is equipment provided at clubs, for example? If you go to a badminton club, is there a stash of badminton rackets which can be used by people who maybe can't afford it? And the final thing is access to sensible pricing. So again, for concessions, which is elderly people or low socioeconomic groups or economically disadvantaged people, is there access to sensible pricing? Is there reduced prices to try and encourage people into sport? Because they're far less likely to participate regularly over a long period of time if they can't afford it, and it's going to put stretches on their sort of normal life. We only have to think about factors that affect the popularity of a sport, and there are 8 different factors that affect how popular a sport is. The first one's participation. So if a sport's already widely participated in, you're far more likely to take part. So in this country, in terms of sports, football's very popular within young populations. Within school, a lot of people's friends participate in football, and there's a lot of opportunities to take part in football at the weekend because there is a good what we call infrastructure of tournaments and competitions and teams, which makes it far more likely to be popular. In terms of provision, so provision of facilities, so we're thinking about not only are there facilities available, but what are the quality of the facilities like. So something like tennis, a lot of free tennis courts aren't sort of kept in very good condition, and therefore it means that you're less likely to take part in tennis. However, if you pay for a tennis court, there's obviously far better facilities available, but this means that they're not that accessible, particularly to young populations. In terms of environment and climate, so does the UK have the climate for whatever sport? We have a very good climate for things like football and rugby, which means they're popular in this country. We don't have the climate for skiing. If you would like to ski, you've got to go to Scotland for a couple of weeks a year, and the quality of skiing there isn't great. Or you've got to go to an indoor sort of ski dome, and that can be costly, and you can have to travel quite a long way to get there. So we don't have the climate for some things, but we do have the climate for others, and that affects the popularity of a sport. Spectatorship, so live football is widely available in this country, so there's high spectatorship sort of levels. We can go to most cities and find a football stadium, and you can go and watch it live, which increases the participation and the popularity of that sport. Whereas some sports like ultimate frisbee, where it's not on the television, for example, are far less likely to become popular because of this. So there's a little bit of a snowball effect goes on. Media coverage, so in terms of media coverage, is it free to watch, and then how much is it on? So Wimbledon's free to watch for a couple of weeks a year, and during that time, popularity of tennis goes up massively, whereas something like golf, for example, although it is still a popular sport, you have to pay to watch the majority of live golf on the television. Likewise with cricket, the Ashes is on Sky, so you've got to pay to watch that. So the popularity might not be as great as it was if it was free and on free television. Success for teams and individuals is a big one. So if a team's doing well, people are far more likely to watch it, and the sport gains popularity. For example, England after the World Cup, there was a lot of people interested in football who previously maybe hadn't been. And likewise goes for cycling. Success after the 2012 Olympics, the sales of bikes went up a lot, and far more people were taking part regularly in cycling off the back of a lot of success at the 2012 Olympics. Role models is a big thing that affects the popularity of sport, particularly within different user groups. So is there a wide, diverse sort of bank of role models that are on the television? We seem to have a distinct lack of Asian role models and female role models. Although we are seeing more female role models on the television, there's still a lot of work to be done to further increase the popularity of sport within those groups. And finally, acceptability. So sports like boxing and horse racing have quite vocal opposition. Boxing's a violent sport, and for a lot of parents, they don't want their child to take part in a violent sport, which again affects popularity. In terms of horse racing, there's a lot of vocal opposition in terms of the way horses are treated. If a horse gets injured, then they're quite frequently killed, and also hitting the horses while they're racing as well. So vocal opposition definitely affects the popularity of a sport. We've got to think about different popular sports at the minute, and a lot of you will think straight away football is the most popular sport in this country, but we've got to also think about some recreational activities and how many people take part in those recreational activities. For example, walking for leisure is the most popular recreational activity, so 18.6 million people take part in walking for leisure. The flip side is walking and cycling for travel, so to get to work or get to the shops, is also very popular, and about a third of the population participate in this. And if you think about how many people in Cramlington cycle to school, the bike racks are full every day, so walking and cycling is a popular sort of mode of transport, and it is also an activity that will help you keep sort of healthy and fit. In terms of the most popular recreational activity, fishing and angling is the most popular, so there's about 2.9 million people regularly participate in fishing. We have to give some thought to emerging sports, and these are sports that are on the rise, so more people are sort of gaining some popularity in this country. And the one that we think of straight away is ultimate frisbee, so there's about 5 million regular players now worldwide. UK Ultimate, which is the national governing body for ultimate frisbee, have school programs, so people come into schools for taster sessions and sort of promote that, and there's coaching badges for PE teachers to try and get it into PE lessons. It's eligible for Olympic selection now, and the main thing is it's highly accessible due to the limited equipment, so all you need is a field and a frisbee, so that there's not high cost involved in getting involved in that sport. In terms of current trends, the current recommendations for sport in this country, or exercise in this country, is for 10 to 64-year-olds should be doing 150 minutes of exercise a week, and they should be in bouts of 10 minutes or more. 11.5 million people, so about a seventh of the population, do less than 30 minutes a week. 5.6 million are fairly active, but are still doing less than 150 minutes a week. And 27.7 do more than 150 minutes a week. So this is just less than half the population, but it is quite promising numbers. Finally, disability sport population is low. About 43% of disabled people are inactive, and this is definitely something the government should be thinking about in terms of providing opportunities and providing access to facilities, access to equipment to get participation up within disabled populations. Ethnic minorities make up less sporting participants than ethnic majorities, so again, there'll be some sort of initiatives to try and increase population within ethnic minorities to get them into sport, because it's important that we're all keeping nice and healthy to reduce the impact on the NHS, for example. In terms of gender, more women are inactive than men. The statistics show that more men play sport, but women participate generally in leisure activities such as walking or fitness. So women are participating in activities more just for general fitness and less competitive, whereas men are more inclined to play sport with rules and potentially leagues and things like that. And then finally, inactivity increases with age. So as you get older, inactivity increases, and this also occurs in elderly but also in young populations. So inactivity increases massively at 16. When you come out of core PE, the inactivity levels increase a lot, just due to the fact that people are less involved in sport outside of school and they're not doing sport inside of school anymore. And then again, this further decreases at 25 as people become less likely to regularly participate in sport at 25 plus. What I'd like you to do now is have a look at the questions that are on the screen, pause the video, give them a go, even if you just give them a go in your head, but I'd recommend writing them down so you will get an idea of sort of exam technique and how we're answering them. And this will test what you've just learned. So everything you've just listened to, these are some questions surrounding that. They're all real exam questions. These have come up in an exam before. If you're struggling with anything or you're stuck, you can watch back on the video, find that little clip and then come back to the question and jot it down. So it allows you to sort of test your knowledge, find out any gaps in the knowledge and then go and address any misconceptions.